Hey guys, welcome back to Greg's Fishroom. Today we are going to build the 60-gallon breeder stand behind me. This is a Dado cut style aquarium rack that is meant to hold 4 of the 60-gallon breeder tanks that recently were on sale, the $1 per gallon or 50% off sale at Petco. I went ahead and picked up 4 of those while they were on sale. They've been sitting on the ground for a little while, so it's high time to get them onto a stand and get them all plumbed up and ready to go. Today, we are going to build this stand, and I'll show you how to build a Dado cut aquarium stand. Now, you can use this method to install 1 aquarium, 2 aquariums. In this case, we've got 4. I also have a large one that has 12 on it, so you can use the same method for any number of tanks, any type of tanks, any size tanks, dimensions of tanks. This method works for everything, and it is by far my favorite style of stand construction because it's efficient and it carries the load of those aquariums all the way down to the floor through the legs without putting any stress on any of the screws. So you have no chance that the stand is going to fail on you over time. Anyways guys, let's get into it. So come along with me and learn how to be a better aquarist. Alright, any good build is going to start with a plan, and in my case, I'm super fond of Google SketchUp. I've been using it for years and years and years, and really what it allows you to do is get very specific and very accurate with your measurements and visualize what you're creating before you create it. And so what I've done is I went ahead and measured the exact dimensions of the aquariums themselves, the black plastic trim, and then I went ahead and sketched up a stand using 2x6 legs and 2x4 framing. And I made sure to account for all of the dimensions that I needed to watch out for. The leg height, making sure that the tanks were high enough off the ground, making sure I had enough head height between the first tank and the second tank, and all in all, just trying to maximize the cuts and the amount of lumber that I would need to buy to construct this. So all in all, this is a very simple stand. It doesn't utilize a whole lot of different pieces or different cuts of lumber. The really only difficult part about it are the dado cuts. So we're going to walk through exactly how to cut all of the lumber and what that ends up looking like. So let's get to it. Okay, I hate to interrupt the lovely stand time lapse, but we need to talk a little bit about these dado joints before we continue. Now, as you saw, I cut out a dado joint on the top, and then I cut out one in the middle. So this is where the first tank will be resting, and then way up at the top, that's where the second tank will be resting. And this is a pretty standard dado layout. If it was a 3-tier stand, we would just have one more set like this on the board itself. But these are 2x6s, and the reason I went with 2x6s is because you can see, even after that notch has been taken out, we still have a substantial amount of board left over there. So it's plenty strong to hold the weight of the stand and hold it together. It's much more sturdy than if I was to use 2x4 legs. So that's what we did there. Now, as you saw, we used that circular saw to cut out the left side and the right side of the dado joint. Those are the two most important cuts, those first two cuts, because that sets the size of your dado. And then all of the other cuts, all the little small cuts in the middle, it doesn't really matter how many you do. The more you do, the easier it's going to be to remove all those little slices of wood from the middle with your chisel. And so what we're looking for here is a nice flat surface. You can see there's still a little bit of ridges there, but it's not too bad. We cleaned it up pretty well. And really all we're looking for is a nice snug fit with these 2x4 levels that we're going to install. And so as you can see here, this one is maybe a little bit too tight. And so we can just take our chisel and chisel off just a little bit more from the left or the right, or we can take our sandpaper and sand it a little bit until we have a nice snug fit. Now with the dado, you want a nice snug fit. You don't want it to be loose. You don't want this board to be able to fall out. You want it to be a nice snug press fit so that when you go to screw those in, it's sort of snugly, securely in place, and it makes it really, really easy to construct these stands. So that's a look at the dado. It's not that difficult once you do it once or twice, so definitely give it a try. All right, let's continue with the build.
here is the finished product. Our 60 breeder stand, meant for 60 breeders. This thing turned out awesome. Excellent. It's always good to start with a plan. I had that SketchUp plan to start with. That allowed me to cut all of my lumber to the exact right dimensions, and everything went together perfectly. So we have one tank temporarily placed here. I have the other three in the other room, but I wanted to walk you through all of the cuts and pieces and parts to the stand, how it's put together, why I made all of the decisions I did to make this one of the best stands that I've ever built. So it starts with the legs. Again, those are 2x6s, and as you saw, we have them dado cut up at the top and then down here for the first shelf. And that gives me a nice solid piece of wood here to continue to allow all of the weight to be carried by these legs. So all of the weight is being held by these levels here on the front and the back, and then because that wood rests directly on the leg, it's transferring all of that weight directly to the leg. So even though I have screws all over the place in this stand, none of the screws are really carrying any of the weight. They're not under any stress, which is super, super important. You can put a ton of screws into a stand, and the screws will hold the weight if that's how you've constructed the stand. But using dados, none of the stress is on the screws. This stand will last a lifetime. Perfectly built. So those are the legs, the 2x6s. The rest of it is all 2x4s. And so you can see this is a single 2x4, which goes the entire length here of both tanks. And then again, we have another leg right in the middle to give a partition between the left two tanks and the right two tanks. So 6 legs total. The only other piece here that is super necessary are these spacers to get us the correct width, or yeah, I guess if this is length, then this is width, those spacers here. And again, those don't really hold any weight either. It's important that they're nice and level and in line with the front beam and the back beam, but all of that weight is being carried by these two beams down to the floor. Now, one final cut that we made here are just these spacer blocks, and I put one here and put one down there, and then 2 on the other end. And really the only thing that does is it makes sure that this remains square with each other, the front leg and the back leg, so it can't shear or shift front to back. It literally serves no other purpose, but nice to add that as well. And as you can see, I have the 1-inch styrofoam, the thick, rigid styrofoam sheets. Now, I've gotten comments in the past, why do you put the styrofoam? You don't need the styrofoam. It doesn't help level the tanks. Well, it does, and let me explain. Now, your floor is never going to be perfectly level, and your stands are never going to be perfectly level. And so the best thing you can always start with is a shim, like we have there, that black one. That's a good start, because that will help you get level, at least with the floor. And that means your tank should be sitting level as well. But if you're using wood, wood is never going to be level or perfectly flat. If we look down any piece of wood, there's always going to be some minor imperfections. And what that does is it can potentially create hot spots, which put more pressure on one part of your glass tank or your frame. So let's say this board here was bowed up just a little bit, like it had a hump or an arch to it. That would mean it would put more pressure on the middle of the glass than it would on the ends if we were to just put that plastic frame directly on the wood. And that might not seem like a big deal, it might not actually do anything, but over time it could. And it could lead to catastrophic failure. And so for my peace of mind, what I always do is I install a piece of foam, which helps with any of the leveling on the floor, but it also helps with the leveling of any of the bowing or bending or minor imperfections in the heights between, like, let's say 2 pieces of lumber here. If there's any little minor problems, if one is a little bit higher, one is a little bit lower, anything like that, a piece of styrofoam is going to save your butt in the long run. And so for that reason, I always include styrofoam in my stands. So we have a piece of styrofoam for each of those levels. I've taken this one off, it's right over there, just so we can see the boards and the construction, all of the different cuts of lumber here, which put this together. But yeah, that's it. There we go. So I put 1 tank on. I've got 3 tanks in the other room that I'll go ahead and set up at a later time. But I just wanted to check this one for fit. And again, the way that I do this is, what I want is basically like a finger-sized gap on the left side and the right side. That way you can easily place these stands in place. And honestly, what I do is I measure from end to end, front to back, left to right, and I try to make sure that that plastic frame, when it sits on the stand, it's sitting right in the middle of these beams. So as you can see here, it's sitting right on the middle of that beam, and you see it's sitting back a little bit. It's sitting right in the middle of that beam. That means it's got great sort of balance, and it makes sure that I'm not missing one of the pieces of wood that should be or could be carrying that load and helping to distribute it. So that's how I space it, and that's what it ends up looking like. Now, I don't have a ton of head height here. I think it's 11 or 12 inches, something like that, right here. It might be a little bit less, actually, but it's not a big deal. It's actually modeled after this stand over here, and this one is actually deeper front to back than this one is, and it's the same height, head height above it, so should be good. I mean, as you can see here, I can sort of reach in and get my arm all the way into the back with really no problem. So we should be good there. And then when the top tanks are on, I should be able to reach in. I may need a step stool. I may need to get on the first step of the step stool to get all the way in these tanks. But yeah, it's set up, it's built, and I think it's pretty rock solid. The other thing I did similarly here was the height that this first shelf is off the ground is the exact same as over here, which allows me to put like buckets and other things underneath if I need to. And in this case, as you can see over here, we actually have a Laguna tub. The 60-gallon Laguna tub is going to be underneath here as our sump for these 4 tanks that will be here. So I'll be drilling overflow holes in the backs of each of these tanks, and then that plumbing will run on the back side of the stand, and it will drain all the way down here into this Laguna tub. And I'll have my auto water change system on this rack as well, and the extra water, I'll have a float activated sump to pump that out, just like I do with the main rack. So it'll be on the same exact water system. It will just have a different pump, which is pumping that extra water out. Now, I will need to slide all this away from the wall. I will paint the stand, and I will paint the at least the bottoms of the tanks. I might leave the front and back clear so I can see through it, see into the rest of the room. But I do need to pull this all away from the wall because I want to finish this piece of the wall and install this door before I end up sliding stuff against it and making it less accessible for later fixing. So you can see I did this wall here with the nice boards, painted everything white. I'm going to do the same thing over here, at least get it finished all the way over to here so that when I put stuff over here, it's more or less final. And then I can feel good about assembling all the plumbing and getting everything a little bit more permanently set up. So as part of this, the one neat thing is this 300-gallon stock tank. Again, it's also slid away from the wall so I can finish the wall behind it. I'm going to hook this up to the same plumbing that the rack is hooked up to. So once everything is slid against the finished wall, I've got a 2-inch overflow hole there that's already been drilled, and I'm going to connect that to the same drain plumbing that's going to run in between the two, and all of that's going to go into that Laguna tub, and then the water pump is going to pump water back up to all 4 of these tanks, but also to the stock tank. So looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a great solution, a great little system here, a great little addition to the fish room. So that is the 60-gallon breeder tank stand, 4 tanks total. Can't wait to get this thing all plumbed up, painted up, and full of fish. So more on that later, but for now, this is it. We're done.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a like, please subscribe, but also please check out Nature Forged Aquatics on Amazon. You can check out products like this, the Nature Forged Aquatics alder cones, which is a great product to add to your blackwater tanks, to your shrimp tanks, to your soft water aquariums. Provides natural tannins, allows you to naturally and slowly drop the pH in your aquariums. It's a great product. This is a 4-ounce bag. It has tons of cones in it. It will last you a very long time. It also helps support this channel because Nature Forged Aquatics is my brand. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later.